this particular morning meditation, I want to talk to you about speaking up. There's a quote, and I think it's attributed to Martin King, that the easiest way for evil to persist is for good men, and I'll do my take, and good women to see it and do nothing and say nothing about it. You got to speak up. Many ills in our society are growing because there's little resistance. Very few people want to speak up about it. Who wants to stand out of the crowd? Who wants to suffer the attacks that come with those who speak up? While there are many scriptures there are scriptures that advocate the use of silence. There are also much of the Bible is filled with scriptures about speaking up. When I was a child, I thought as a child. I spoke as a child, but now that I'm a man, it's time to put away childish things. Look, folks, as a grown man and a grown woman, you should be able to speak up against the ills of your society. God wants grown men and grown women that are confident, that speak with authority, that speak with power, that act like they had dominion put in their DNA. God never called us to be walking around scratching where we don't itch and laughing where we're not tickled. You got to speak up. You got to speak the word in season and out of season. Maybe it's because, this word is to the talented 10, to all of those of you who are enjoying the creature comforts of life, that much of what you see in your world and much of what you accomplish in your world is because you've been quiet even though you see wrong going on. That wrong is happening to them. But if it happens to the least of us, sometimes God's put the charge for those that can't speak up for themselves and those whose word wouldn't be taken seriously upon those of you of promise, those of you that are the talented 10, to whom much is given, much is required. You got to speak up. I remember I had a case as a young pastor wherever I was, I'll just say that. And the bishop came by, not the bishop, but the jurisdictional prelate came by. And there was a table full of pastors, and it was his day, I guess, to say something to me, to admonish me in front of all them. And he said, "Pastor Smith, are you not speaking today?" And, instantly the whole table's rolling because, I'm being baked. They're serving fried Pastor Smith. I said, "Well, Bishop, I had every intention of speaking, but after the other 9 times that I spoke and you walked by me without responding, I had grown tired by the 10th. The table went to a hush. Did he say that to the bishop? Well, the bishop pulled me to the side and he said, "Smith, I want you to come preach for me." Hey, you got to talk like a man. Be a man. It's time out for weak, lily-livered sissies that talk, strike that word out, but it's time to be a man. When you're a man, speak like a man. A man should have a position. A man should have bearing. A man should walk in dominion. A man should speak like a man. Scriptures declare, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I spoke like a child, but now that I'm a man, it's time to put away childish things. I believe in this day that if we're not going to be like the church of Laodicea, which was a lukewarm church, even in the things of God, we got to have people that call a spade a spade. We're silent on things that matter. How can we be silent on the thing that God has spoken so much about? We got preachers that are scared of preaching on sin. Sin. Because if I get in people's business, if I preach on sin, if I touch an area they don't want to be touched, they vote with their feet. They're not going to come back. So we got preachers scared to preach against sin. The war cry for the holiness movement back in days of old used to be, "It's holiness of hell." And now You know, we got guys scared to talk about holiness. We'll preach holiness, but not exactly practice it. And the devil always, oh God, that's it. The enemy always wants to silence you on your thing. You know, that one area where you think that that you've had your own personal struggles with. The enemy tries to silence your voice on certain issues. But if you're called to walk by faith and not by sight. God wants you speaking out. God wants boldness in the area and have you to speak out against what is sin, even though you may have had personal struggles with it. We got to speak up. Look, folks, it's insane, even with the Black Lives movement, Black Lives Matter movement. It's amazing that when someone has their foot of oppression on your back, and then you're supposed to stay silent, you can't tell them that your foot hurts. Maybe you should rethink your position. This isn't right. You know, and even when we go into corporate issues where people, you know, that's someone's livelihood. So that can definitely rob us of our own voice. But however, every now and then you got to speak up. Maybe you're looking at this thing through your lens. Can I give you a view from my lens? Look, folks, there's more than one angle to every story. In this day where we have so many struggles and so much evil persists, maybe evil persists because good men and good women, like you and I, are not speaking up. Well, I've retired I've retired from my safe place. I've retired from my place of isolation. I've retired from not having a voice. You know, because when you don't have a voice, many times you're safe, you're not ostracized, you're not targeted, you have a place of safety, you have a refuge from all of the rigmarole that happens in the world. But God says, to whom much is given, much is required. Maybe we're too silent on things that matter. Look, folks, Jesus once told the scribes and Pharisees, you are those who strain at a gnat, but you swallow a camel. Look, folks, are we making big out of small things, and are we staying silent on the large things that matter? Are we majoring on minors and minoring on majors? Look, folks, it's still right to speak up. Sin is still sin. No two ways about it. God doesn't put, you know, we got so many takes on it. You know, maybe it's our contemporary thought in the day and age that we live in. But God called us, even though we're in the world, God called us to not be of it. Every now and then, you should have the mental resolve. You should have the intestinal fortitude. You should have the God-given right to stand up, and not only stand up, but to speak up. Maybe we've been far too quiet on things that matter. From today on, let's resolve to speak up. Now, I know you can find a million scriptures that tell you to be silent, and there's this and that, but God also had a whole lot of book. Practically every prophet in the Old Testament had the boldness to speak up against the evils of this society, to speak up against the higher-ups. The prophets in the days of old warned the leaders of their land. Now the prophets of our day just play golf with them. Every now and then, you ought to speak up. God bless you. My morning meditation.